We're going to get joined a bit later by Maddy Proud, who I'm not sure if any of you follow the netball. I don't know netball that well, but got introduced to her. And so she's going to come on and talk about her journey. She's a South Australian girl, which played for the Thunderbirds for a period of time and then moved up to Sydney and is the captain of the Sydney SWIFTS netball side up in New South Wales. So she'll be on a little bit later. But just want to start with I guess keeping the theme of a few girls. This is Tommy George, who looks after WA. He's been talking to a few of the players over the last few weeks, and not sure if any of you would have seen this last. He's spoken to Matt Ebden on the guys, and he spoke to Astra Sharma. Astra obviously went down the journey of playing college tennis in America to playing Fed Cup for Australia now, and also has put herself inside the top 100 in the women's game coming out of college. So I thought that would be an interesting intro of just the pathways tonight. Let me just share my screen here. I've just got Matt's big head on there for some reason now, but let's see here. Sorry. Yeah. You guys see this screen up here now? Everyone?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. All right, here we go.
Tennis player Astra Sharma. So Astra, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a great 12 months for you, reaching the top 100 in the world and representing your country at the Fed Cup, where you made a run all the way to the final. So well done on that. And I guess during this period of isolation, what have you been up to so you can hit the ground running when your tournaments are back on the calendar?
So yeah, obviously there's not much tennis to be played as of now, but I've been trying to do my best to keep in shape, keep those conditioning levels up, because with all this time, like, the best thing you can do is make yourself better in any way possible. And at least if I get this one thing out of the way when it all kind of settles down a bit, that's one thing I don't have to take care of. Been doing a lot of boxing, a lot of biking, a lot of pool running, a lot of running, trying to keep in shape still and get those little bits of my game better. Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds fantastic. Keep them very busy. So the kids had an opportunity to send in questions to ask you, and a lot of the kids in our programs and around the country are very interested in doing college tennis in America. How has that prepared you for professional tennis and life in general?
Oh, I mean, unbelievably. So I think if I didn't go to college personally, like, I wouldn't have been able the skill set to transition so well into the pros. For me, college environment was almost really just like perfect. It was so isolated and just intense. You can really develop yourself as a player in terms of just emotional maturity, physical maturity, mental maturity. Like, you go to class, you have that aspect, and it's really well rounded. And then you go train, and training is kind of all on you, so tennis is a pretty self-motivated sport, and that's the same applies in college. No one's really gonna baby you or ask you to hit. It's all on you, as much as you like or just how little as you like it. But they give you all tools to become a world-class player. They give you facility, access to physio, good nutrition, individuals with coaches, and it's up to you to utilize it. So I think me, like, having that sort of level of training and facilities, it was easy to get better.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, you're a great role model for the college program. Well done. This week we're focusing on the well-being pillar of learn. So I think you'd be great to speak about this pillar. What education and upskilling have you been up to during isolation?
So I actually, at the start of the year, started my online master's in kinesiology. Just something to keep me busy because you got a lot of downtime on tour, and now it's even more of a blessing to have something to do downtime. So I think tennis is one part of my life, but I'm not just a tennis player, and I like keeping myself open to learning new things, being a more well-rounded person, and obviously this online masters is actually giving me a lot of things that are very applicable to my training. I'm learning about why we do things and how to get better, so it puts a little bit more accountability on me, which is good, and a bit more. I'm also trying to learn how to play guitar at the moment. That's another bit, just for fun, but yeah, I really, if you learning is just like one of the biggest things in my life, like how to just become a better person every way. It's always fun, like why stay the same?
Oh, great, fantastic. And lastly, Astra, what tips do you have for the juniors in isolation during this time to keep busy and keep motivated?
Yeah, so I think for me, like having a set routine is just not letting the hours pass you by watching TV. So like setting a time, like at 10 o'clock, I want to ABC. I think once you have a bit of purpose and clarity in your day, it's a bit more stay motivated and on what you need to do. Me, like guys, also just been talking a lot to my dogs.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and good luck with all your training and good luck when you're back out on tour. Thanks very much. Bye.
Yeah, so pretty interesting stuff there from Astra. Some gone into another YouTube video by the looks of things. There we go. Sorry for the technical malfunction there. I'll tighten that up in the future. But yeah, some really cool messages from Astra there. And what I liked and what she spoke about is her utilizing the time, especially during this COVID, to get herself better. To on court, she spoke about the physical stuff and having all that done. So when she's ready, when the green light goes, she knows in the back of her mind she's done all that extra work during this period, this long layoff, and she's ready to go when she needs to be, and her game's ready to go. On the other side of it, the off court, I thought was really, some of the messages there. And she spoke about the college pathway, just the accountability, where going into the university system, all the facilities and everything were there for her, but it wasn't necessarily someone who's going to push her all the time. She had that drive to be pushing herself, and to utilize all those things that were available to her. So I think that something that the skills that while she was over there, she realized that. And I think Milo's on the call tonight. I mean, he sort of was around Astra a bit in WA when she was coming through as a junior, and she's pretty switched on girl, as you can tell now after she's finished, her tennis, and in this off period of time, she's got a degree from uni. Well, now she's doing her master's in kinesiology, and I think it was physiology, but I would imagine there'd be pretty tough things to get through in a master's. So she's got a lot going on, but as she said, she's set routines, which have been really important, and it gives her structure in the day. And that's something that, as we've been talking about the last few weeks, we've been talking about, being organized, having that level of consistency, and educating ourselves. And obviously, Astra's doing an amazing job with all three of those pillars that we've been talking to you girls about. Em, do you want to say anything there, or you'll just jump in when you want to jump in?
I will jump in and just say that I really liked when she spoke about routine and having that setting up your new routine. Our old routines are a little bit out of the window at the moment. School as much. We're not, particularly because it's holidays, but we're not doing the same routine of things that we would use So it's really important as that we do set up a new routine, because as humans we're creatures of habit. We thrive with predictability. So creating those new routines, committed to forming those new habits during this time is going to be very, very useful for us all.
Great, thank you. So just moving on from that, just wanted to show you again just the next couple of things. I'll share my screen here. That I've just been in my off time, just sort of trying to read up a little bit and see what everyone's doing. And this was a message that came through just on Coco Gauff's. Can you guys see that now? Yeah. This came through on Coco Gauff a little bit, and and she's obviously got her stuff going on. Just I'll read it out so the ones that are not on the computer, that they can hear it. But I thought it was pretty interesting. She's the best 15, 16-year-old in the world. She's ranked, I think 44 in the world at the moment. And there's some really good messages in what she says here. Throughout my life, I was always the youngest to do things, which added the hype that I didn't want. It added this pressure that I needed to do well fast. Once I let that all go, I started to have the results I wanted. Right before Wimbledon, going back to around 2017-18, I was struggling to figure out if this was really what I wanted. I always had the results, so that wasn't the issue. I just found myself not enjoying what I loved. I realized I needed to start playing for myself and not other people. For about a year, I was really depressed. That was the toughest year for me so far. Even though it felt like there weren't many friends that were there for me. When you are in that dark mindset, you don't look at the bright side of things too often, which is the hardest part. I don't think it had much to do with tennis, maybe just about juggling it all. I knew that I wanted to play tennis, but I didn't know how I wanted to go about it. It went so far that I was thinking about possibly taking a year off just to focus on life. Choosing not to obviously was the right choice, but I was close to not going in that direction. I was just lost. I was confused. I was overthinking this was what I wanted or what others did. It took many moments sitting, thinking, and crying. I came out of it stronger, knowing myself better than ever. Everyone asks me how I stay calm on the court, and I think it's because I accepted who I am after overcoming low points in my life. Now when I'm on court, I just really am thankful to be out there. Personally, for me, I like playing for more than myself. One of the biggest things is to continue breaking barriers. At the same time, I don't like being compared to Serena or Venus. First, I'm not at their level yet. I always feel like it's not fair to the Williams sisters to be compared to someone who is just coming up. It just doesn't feel right yet. I still look at them as my role models. With all their accolades, I shouldn't be put in the same group yet. Of course, I hope to get to where they are, but they're two women that set the pathway for myself, which is why I can never be them. Coco. So really, really cool. She's 15, 16. She's pretty young, and to really share that with her fans and girls of your age, I think is a really powerful message that she's the best in the world. She had all this pressure on her and expectations, which she had to deal with, and it's no different than any sport. You've heard from the girls come on, whether it's Lane's journey, Alicia's, everyone's going to have a different journey with that. And I thought it was a pretty powerful message from her, and I thought it was worth sharing with you girls tonight.
Very cool insights there about playing for yourself rather than to up to anyone else's expectations. Thankful just for the opportunities. I thought that was a really cool message.
Yeah. So just moving on again from there, just another one I wanted to share with you was, so now we're going to go into pathways here. Hang on a sec. Can you guys see my screen still? Can you see my screen? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So we're just, again, I'm going to go into my presentation in pathways shortly, but just on COVID and what's going along, in the world with jobs and whether our parents are dealing with being laid off with work. Well, tennis players don't have jobs, and there's always been this big argument over time as well, where in our sport, especially professionally, the top players make a pretty good living out of the sport. Whereas the players that are battling for the lower tier events, there's not a lot of money at that level, and there's not a lot of accolades. They have to, and some of them, the journey, as you hear, it takes longer for them to get there, and it's a pretty tough situation at the moment where there's no tournaments on now. Some of these girls and the guys as well that have been out there trying to, move up the ranks on everything. Well, there's nothing for them to do that now. And I guess this was a player, Sophia Shapata, I think it's Shapatova, and I think she's ranked about 350 WTA. And she's basically written to the WTA and trying to get a lot of the players like herself. She's a 16-year veteran. She's been out there for a long time. And in that space of time, you can read here, she's made about $350,000 US. That's pretty good over, if we look at that, well, that's a lot of money. But if you divide that by 16 years, and put all the expenses down to it, it's a pretty tough journey. And up until COVID, which came into it, she made about $3,000. And when COVID came in, she was playing a tournament somewhere in South America, and after she won this match to get into the quarterfinals, they said, "Yep, everyone, the tournaments, we can't play any longer. Everyone's got to go home and get home as soon as they can." So she had to use that money, whatever she made, to get home, which was cost of about $2,000. So interesting article, and again, it's a long journey. As I said, this girl's been out there for 16 seasons of trying to break through on the WTA pro circuit. We always see and we always hear stories of everyone getting through, and that journey takes a lot of hard work, and sometimes it takes longer than others. But that's why tonight I just wanted to really talk about the pathways and show you how some of the pathways work. You guys know the ITF junior pathway. The pathway a little bit through Australia. And we're going to talk a little bit about the college pathway and what that really realistically looks like. Because as we know right now of where things are at, realistically, we know people are losing their jobs. So there's no way to say that this isn't real. So tonight, just wanted to sort of have that discussion and be open with those things. And being a professional athlete and on the WTA journey and pathway is a long journey, and it's a tough one. But if we're prepared to put in the hard work and be committed, if that's what we really want to do, well, we have to work really, really hard for those goals and things that we want. Okay. You guys see that all right? Still? Good, yep. And you guys can hear me okay? Okay, so just something too, and Astra spoke about it, just a couple of quotes there. Her drive. Poncho Gonzalez, you may not know him. Milo, he's a bit younger than Milo, I think. No, sorry, Milo, I think he's a bit older. The great champions were always vicious competitors. You never lose respect for a man who is a vicious competitor, and you never hate a man you respect. I don't like Rod Laver because he's a vicious competitor, but I don't dislike him either. And then Muhammad Ali, who we know, big, great world champion boxer. I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion. The player makes the player. The coach guides you as players. The coach can motivate, mentor, teach, and help create a great environment in which to learn. That's what we're doing tonight. My job as a coach, whether I'm on court or off court with you, it's to try and educate you and make you a better player. If we look at this Tennis Australia pathway, this was obviously something that's been out there now for the last few years. You guys are familiar with it. Playing your JTs, moving up, playing your nationals at 12s and 14s and 16s. With that, starting to move into the ITFs, which at the age of 13, you start playing the ITFs up until 18. And some of you, if you move up that ranking ladder in ITFs, maybe play the bigger junior events and play the junior slams like the Australian Open, French, Wimbledon, and US Open. From there, obviously playing Opens, we tested a little bit in Australia. We play some AMTs. I know in South Australia we've got the opportunity to play State League, where we play some of the older athletes and some of the girls in pennant, and that's sort of the open part of the journey here in Australia and in South Australia. And then obviously from there, moving out of post juniors, you're going into the lower ranked ITF pro circuit events. And then from there into the WTAs. So that's sort of what the pathway looks like currently. Still looks that way a little bit. I mean, you can see there's Pizzy Cup in there as a team, which some of you have played. Nationals, as I mentioned. So the new structure and the development pathway, and that's probably more where some of you I know have been involved in the state program. Some have been, with the National Academy now for a period of time. Well, as you've known a little bit when it got announced in late February, the new development pathway and what that looks like, with definitely some more squad-based national development squads and zone squads. And then the kids that are going quite well have an opportunity at the National Tennis Academy, which will be positioned up in Queensland, up in Brisbane, and then opportunities maybe from there from different overseas hubs. But that's sort of where it's moving towards. From a tournament point of view, you're still going to be playing the same events in a sense. You're still going to be playing your AMTs. You're still going to be playing junior ITFs. That pathway is still going to be moving the same as what it has been over the last few years. But, the changing is going to be a little bit more around, what you have domestically here now and what you have with the National Academy, the state programs, you private coach a little bit more, and then some of these national development squads. So with that, and I did this presentation, it was last year. So these numbers could have changed a little bit, but if you look at the opportunities and these are junior ITFs by region. So if you look at the region, you have the number of junior ITFs for the boys on one side, and then you have the number of ITFs for the girls on the other side. So that is, if you look at, and we're part of the Oceania, there's 14 events that you can play in Australia. Well, sorry, in the Oceania region. Just double check that for a second. Yeah, and if you look at around the world, Europe, as we know, a lot bigger than Australia, 296 ITFs. If you look at up in, I guess, America, probably not at, they're up at 50. If you look at Asia, again, a lot more. So as we see here, just based on these numbers, those ITFs, there's a lot more going on in some of these other overseas countries with the opportunities to play some ITFs and have that overseas experience. With that becomes a cost, and then you have your coaches and things that might need to travel with you. So again, we're looking at this, and I'm showing you this tonight just because it's the opportunities and the real numbers, I guess, that exist in that. I haven't put up, the number of AMTs that, around Australia that you could potentially play. And some of you have already played some of those ITFs now in Australia, whether it's in Victoria or up in the Northern Territory, Queensland, you've gone over to New Zealand. So there's a bit of a makeup on what that looks like, and some of you have seen that already and played most of those. If you go into the futures now, so this is going, you finished up your juniors or you're trialing a little bit, the ITF future. So again, you look at the opportunities in Australia for the female side of things, 14 ITF futures. Look at around the world. Italy's got 36, US 42. There's opportunities all around the world, and that's what a lot of the Europeans and a lot of the other girls are chasing. Chasing those points, chasing those experiences in other countries. We can get it here at home, but my point with all of this is there's a lot of opportunities. It's not just in our backyard. The opportunities are overseas as well. But again, that opportunity there's a cost factor to that, and it's going to be expensive. So when you're out there training and you say, yeah, I want to do this, well, this is an investment in your future. And if you're putting in the hard work at home and feel like you're ready for those opportunities to test the waters overseas, well, that's what moving forward through the pathways, especially at a professional level, it's gonna take. Moving into the new space, which, well, it's not new, but the UTR, and some of you started to look at what UTR represents, and UTR sort of started a little bit in the college system in the US, and now sort of built in a little bit more into the professional realm. I think they did it at the Australian Open this year, where the WTA have a ranking system, UTR use a rating system. So they, sometimes the WTA, they might have had a girl that was ranked 3 in the world, but her UTR ranking was 6. And there's an algorithm that the UTR use, and it's based on some of the opponents that you face and what their rating might be. And so it awards, I guess it awards a bit more of a rating. It's not done on points. It's more, so you might play someone like if you look here in Astra Sharma, and you might still lose to her, and you might lose in 3 sets. Well, it sort of gives you an understanding of, well, geez, I'm pretty close to Astra because I lost in 3. I'm almost there with her. So it's a bit more of a likeness to apples, orange to oranges, rather than, as we know, a lot of people might go play a lot more tournaments, and they might play weaker tournaments, and they might have a ranking that might say, well, my ranking's a lot higher than yours. Well, and you girls might say, well, I haven't played that many tournaments, but you've played that girl, you might beat that girl every time, but she still has a higher ranking and still might get into more tournaments. So this is a bit more of a rating system that tries to take that out of play a little bit, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. We've exposed ourselves a little bit in South Australia to that, and we'll probably continue to do more. Especially, we are looking at that a little bit now with what's happening in the environment of putting on something like this. So stay posted and watch that space. But as you see there, I mean, these are the top girls from last year that represented universities and have done quite well. Astra's obviously, as I mentioned, she's top 100 in the world. Sam Harris came out of Duke University, another strong university. Unfortunate for her, she did her knee, so she's sort of been trying to come back, but she came out of college starting to do quite well. Petra, some of you know, at Florida State, you can see Petra's rating there is pretty close to Astra. So Petra might look at that and be like, well, wow, Astra's top 100. Am I close to that? But what does it take? Does Petra have the same gauge and same I guess drive as what Astra spoke about? You can go all the way down the list. So with some of these girls, and I've put this up here, some of you may not know them, but they're girls that, like yourselves, that decided to go college pathway. Caitlin Staines is playing at Tennessee. Danny Waglin, who was from New South Wales, played at University of Texas. Well, there's a thing every few years. It's like the Olympics of universities. And both these girls through, because they're at university, they both were able to represent Australia in the university games and play some really strong competition and had a great experience representing their country and playing in Italy, I believe it was. This one you can see there, Danny represented in Taipei. I think Italy was the last one, just was on last year, which Caitlin played in. So again, a pretty cool opportunity for these girls in a different pathway, but again, still getting incredible competition, whether it's in university games, whether it's in college, whether they're playing ITF futures, whether they're playing AMTs at home. But it's all about trying to create that environment and finding that different level of competition. Next slide's just a little bit, again, it's a bit dated, but a few years ago, and this was probably, I think I took this was from 2019, but there was a girl that Kamike Date Crum she was top 20 in the world when she was a bit younger. Anyhow, she came back at the age of 44 years and 5 months and got herself back inside 200. Pretty amazing effort. And then you can see those that remember Bouchard, at the time she was 21 years and 3 months old and she was in the top 10. Since then, she struggled to find that sort of form again. So what this slide really shows is just the average age of players on the WTA tour. You can see in the top 200, the average age is 25 years old. The top 100, 25 years, 6 months. Top 50, 26 years and 2 months. So, yeah, there are some younger girls in there. As you see there, the top 20, there are some younger girls in there, and there's some older ones. So, again, as Coco Gauff spoke about, she had this expectation because she was winning so well, it had to happen really fast. Well, it has happened fast for her. And she's done a great job, but at the same time, as she spoke about, that she did question, if she was on the right path and in the right journey for what she wanted to do. So, pretty interesting journeys for all of these girls. So that's something, again, to think about. The journey is not about what we do right now. It's putting in the work and it's putting in those hours on court and it's enjoying the journey and the tennis journey that we're all currently on. Who would have thought where we're at the moment with COVID that where everyone's sidelined, whether you're a junior or a professional player, for it's probably going to end up being close to 6 months. So, this is a time where, all right, well, we have to make the best of the opportunity of what we can do, whether it's on court, whether it's off court, and, really think about being organized, being consistent in what we're trying to do. Being consistent off court and off court, catching up with people that we want to be friends with and hang around and spend time with. So that's pretty much entails a bit of the rest of my presentation. And happy to sort of answer any questions I guess you guys have on some of those pathways. Where are we here? Yep. And I think it's worth a discussion a little bit because, as I said, we're going to wait. Maddy's going to be probably coming on in the next 15 minutes, and we'll be talking to her again with her journey. I think the pretty cool thing with her that I wanted to share with you guys a little bit was, and I thought it would be really relevant, and I'd rather you ask the question than myself, but as a 16-year-old, Maddy Proud was selected to play senior netball for the Thunderbirds. So she was obviously a very good junior netballer. And I've said to you, I didn't really follow netball too much, and but my girls play netball. It's another sport, but it's another journey from an elite professional sportswoman that as a 16-year-old who's touted probably one of the best junior netballers in the state, all of a sudden the Thunderbirds have recognized that, brought her into their system, and wow, she's gone from a junior development space and different academies and playing junior netball to all of a sudden playing senior netball and training like a senior professional player. What a massive change. And I'm really interested to hear what in that part of her, her journey, like what was that like? What did she have to change? What did she have to prioritize? That's what we've been talking about with all the girls. Where did her priorities change? Was she still hanging out with her mates? Was she still doing things that she still liked doing, other sports? Or was it all became netball and that's where she was at? So, one of you probably should ask that question, and because if you don't, I certainly will. But it'd be better coming from one of you girls out there. But a pretty interesting journey of what she's been on, and I think all the journeys to say what's the right path. If we knew that as coaches, and if I knew that as a junior moving in through that world, we'd all be making the right decisions. We'd all feel like, well, you know what? Well, I'm supposed to, because I've done all this work as a junior. Well, tennis owes me that I'm going to become this professional player now because I've done all this work. Well, it doesn't work that way. It works by how much we put into it, the dedication. There's so many factors going into being a professional at any level and at any job. And I think that's really an important message that we're trying to drive home with all you girls, is that tennis is a great sport. I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you about tennis and the journey that I've had over time, and all the girls that come on are sharing that journey and have gone through it where you girls currently sit right now. So I think, and I hope I still have these, we'll probably be doing these online things in the next 10 years. I'll be getting you girls coming back and telling me a little bit about your journeys. We heard about Astra, which I shared, really pretty impressive. Is Astra's tennis going to stop in the next 4 or 5 years? And she decides, you know what, I've always wanted to do kinesiology, and that's what I want to do, and that's what I've been studying for. Well, she's preparing herself for that. She's preparing herself. Well, you know what? While I have this time, I'm gonna get my master's in kinesiology and learn about it, and it's actually helping her in her tennis career. One of the other things I'm just thinking about talking with you guys is the yoga. Matt's done an awesome job. You guys have been part of the yoga, and Zoe. I'm not sure if Zoe's still on tonight, but she's still driving that. And one thing I found, and it was late in my tennis career, I found yoga. I got injured when I was at the peak of my tennis game, and I couldn't do much for 6 months. And I started to do yoga because my flexibility, and those of you that know me and know how good my flexibility is, and how well I bend and can touch my toes and all those things. Well, I wanted to work on my flexibility to get it better. It still is ongoing. Yoga still hasn't helped that, but it's getting better. But the one thing I learned with yoga being, and I ended up doing I was doing 2 sessions a day sometimes of yoga because I ended up really enjoying it. And the challenge that I didn't know, which was there, was yoga ended up being a form of meditation for me. No one really explained yoga as a way of, meditating. And I learned that practice in yoga of like, wow, I'm really working on my focus here. I was in the room for an hour and a half practicing these yoga positions, and really pushing myself to get further and further into those yoga positions. So when I came back after 6 months and hit my first ball, I felt strange, but I felt like, wow, I'm timing the ball quite well. I'm seeing the ball really well. I feel like I'm just so focused. And for me, that came from the yoga. And so if I knew that when I was your age and saying, well, wow, what a great opportunity to do yoga. Yes, it's gonna help my flexibility, but there's other components to that. And Zoe, I'm sure, talks to you guys a bit about it. Em could probably talk about it. Emily with nutrition could talk about it, because all those girls, everyone, it's become a pretty big part of different environments, and we're lucky to have that in our environment in SA. And now since it's online, it's obviously reaching a few more girls, which it's going to help. So it's a pretty cool thing to have. And again, that's educating yourselves and getting yourselves better. So anyone, love to hear from you a little bit, just to talk about some of the things maybe that you've done, or just whether it's from yoga or some of the sessions that you've been doing lately in the last week or 2 weeks. Anything, any sort of cross training or that you've really enjoyed those sessions? Love to talk about a little bit while we've got some time before Maddy comes on. And if I don't hear from you, I'm going to go and ask you. Not Matt. It's all right, mate.
I'll just make a tiny little comment that I recently did my first yoga, not my first yoga session, but a first yoga session in quite some time, and I will attest to the fact that it takes a bloody lot of focus, and I think it's great that that we can get a really physical thing like yoga happening, and it's really working in our mental skills as well. And obviously, I'm biased and always talking about our mental skills. But the fact that we can get that body-mind connection through yoga is really, really amazing, and a fantastic thing to do. The other thing that might be a really great thing to work on while we are not hitting as many balls is the power or the skill of visualization or imagery or mental rehearsal, or whatever you want to call it. Those 3 terms can be used interchangeably, but it's a really great way to be able to hone our focus at the same time as getting that mental practice in on our serving or on our skills. But I think that's another really handy skill that we could all use as an organization. But I love the body-mind connection from yoga, and I've recently found it myself. So that's my little personal development for this time, is that I've been trying to do a bit more yoga myself.
Great. Good job, Anne. All right, I'll just go down the list, unless someone wants to share something that they've done in the last couple of weeks. All right. No? All right, I know Elim's on the call. Elim, I'm calling you out. Tell me something you've done in the last couple of weeks that you've enjoyed. Elim, are you there? Probably need to put your microphone on.
Hi.
There we go, Elim. All right, Elim.
Making
What have you
TikToks.
been up to, Elim?
I've been making TikToks.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Has that been in growth mindset, or is that something that's just you're getting better at, better TikTok?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like learning the dances faster, so
Okay, well, maybe, Elim, we could get you come on and you can demonstrate a few of those next time.
maybe.
All right, what about Jazzy?
I don't know.
Yeah. Jazzy, you there?
Hi. Yeah. Me and my brother, we've been working on running a track around our property because we have a big property. We've made like signs and we've made a running track, so that's been fun. So we've been running that most days.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say mountain biking, but that's all right.
Oh yeah, that was fun too. I like that.
Okay. Charlotte.
Schoolwork.
Oh, come on, Charlotte. You said you hate schoolwork.
I know, but
So is that
because
working
of me
yourself?
hating it, that's why I'm so far behind.
Oh, but I said something that you're enjoying. So you're actually enjoying your
Oh,
schoolwork.
did you say something I'm enjoying?
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds like schoolwork might be new for you, Charlotte.
It is. I haven't done this much before.
Well, that's good. All right. What about Chloe? You got your microphone on, Chloe?
I've been going on a bike ride.
Biking along the beach. I lost her. What about Maddie? Is Maddie with you, or is she on a different phone?
I'm here on my own phone.
What's Maddie been up to?
Well, I've been bike riding like Chloe. I was doing some sessions with Matt.
Yeah. What's Matt been What's he been doing? Some beach stuff?
Yeah, a bit of that. Lots of running.
Lots of running. Matt likes lots of running.
Yeah.
We got caught by the tide, didn't we?
Yeah.
I thought I saw one of you girls out on the water on a stand-up paddleboard somewhere.
Yeah, that was us.
That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been fun when the ocean's flat.
Yeah, you haven't seen any big moving objects in the water out there, have you?
Seen a stingray.
Okay. That's all right. We got Diestris on.
Hello.
Hey, what have you been up to?
I've just been trying to do some more mobility stuff and also trying to get better at Japanese.
Oh, cool. Japanese. Is that your first year or second? Are you doing that at school?
That's my third.
Very good. Can you say something? Can you tell us something in Japanese?
Nah, not right now. Not feeling it.
I think Charlotte can speak a bit of Japanese.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Yeah, there you go. Fair enough. That's it, Charlotte?
Watashi wa Charlotte desu.
Oh, that's pretty good. Don't know what that is.
Arigato.
Is that what you're having for dinner?
No, it's
Oh.
just my name is Charlotte. I think.
Okay.
I don't even know.
Do you girls have any questions? I know some of you are doing a little bit of a research project with Cody with college stuff in America. Do you guys have any questions on that or anything you want to ask? Actually, we won't go there. Maddie, you've just come on there? Can you hear us?
I've snuck in. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good timing. Yeah. Welcome.
I thought I'd just sneak on in. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, welcome. We've just been really talking through a little bit of what the girls have been doing in the last few weeks since COVID's come on board, and then I've just sort of been talking through a little bit of pathways and tennis with them tonight. But I guess, again, thanks for coming on tonight to talk to a few of the girls. Just give a bit of a run through, a bit of a bio on you, Maddy. I know you're up there playing with the Sydney Swifts and captaining the Sydney Swifts. I think the big one for us that we really want to hear about tonight was playing with the Thunderbirds, I guess at a pretty young age, and also your book writing. I know both my daughters have read your book, which I thought was really cool and pretty relevant on what we're talking to the girls about today. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice environment to kind of meet you all in, I guess.
Yeah, a bit different. So I know, I guess this self-isolation and your training even tonight, I know you obviously changed it around a little bit, and a season ending last year with your knee. Just tell us a little bit on how that's going and I guess where you're at with everything at the moment.
Yeah, so we've just sort of been in a group call. We've kind of been doing as much as we can as a team, I guess, which is hard in these sort of circumstances, but things like bike sessions, which have been online, Pilates sessions, and then once a week we sort of catch up as a group with our team psych as well as our coaches, sort of S&C, kind of everyone that's involved in the program, just to pretty much check in and see how everyone's doing. So I guess in terms of staying connected as a team, it's been a huge focus for us because we've kind of got people that are all over the world at the moment. We've even had, one of our girls has gone back home to England. We've got, myself here in Adelaide, another girl in Perth. So everyone's kind of all over the place. So just trying to, keep things as connected and normal as they can be. So in terms of training, that's probably changed a fair bit. Obviously doing it at our own homes. I've got sort of a little makeshift gym out the back. We're very lucky that our strength and conditioning coach is so involved and so, kind of caring in a way that he's set everyone their own program kind of based on what everyone has access to. And for me, that's obviously a little bit different given my injury and my rehab. So, like you said, did my ACL sort of halfway through last season. And then the team went on to win the grand final, which was very exciting, but also sad that I obviously couldn't play in it. And so I've been rehabbing for, it'd be going on kind of 10 months now, 11 months, because I actually retore. I did my meniscus at the same time as doing my ACL and retore my meniscus about 2 months ago. So I had to get another surgery. So I've sort of gone back into even the earlier stages of rehab again in the last kind of few months, which meant that it was even sort of tougher when this all happened, because usually, was getting physio a couple of times a week and was working kind of one-on-one with our S&C and our coaches and everything like that to kind of make sure I got back as quickly as possible. But then when this happened, sort of had to come back home to Adelaide. So still trying to rehab, kind of doing virtual physio sessions, have been able to actually go and see a physio here in Adelaide, which has been handy. But yeah, just trying to kind of still do as much as I can to make sure that I'm kind of ready to go when things hopefully go back to normal. But then in a way, I've sort of said that as much as you don't want to say it, it's kind of been a bit of a blessing in disguise for me, because it's given me more time to get myself right leading into the season. So yeah, kind of hoping that once things do come along, they're sort of talking maybe end of July, August is when we could get started again. So that will actually work in my favour. So for now, I've just got to make sure I'm doing enough to be in, I guess, the best condition I can to make sure that I am ready to go when that comes around.
Yeah, well, I guess you could say you coach. I know we spoke about it briefly, but you coached the premiership team, so you probably can't go on from there. Yeah, you said you much prefer to play than be a coach, but it's a pretty good record if you pretty much coached to a grand final win.
Yeah, exactly. I'll say that, coached and captained a grand final in my first year, so I'll take that. But yeah, definitely would have preferred to be on the court. So that's why I'm trying to kind of do all I can to make sure that heading into this season, I can actually play, and I can play in a team that hopefully has a similar success than we did last year.
And I guess with that mindset, we've been talking to girls a little bit about their mindset. That's obviously a big injury for you. I mean, where are you finding that drive and that you obviously want to get back to playing again? So that and then re-injuring your knee, like that's a long journey and probably frustrating. Where are you at with your mindset, and how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I've sort of been through kind of every wave of emotion and kind of been in every sort of place. I think when the actual initial injury happened, I know that even a lot of people sort of said to me, you seem so positive, like kind of treading on eggshells around me, because they thought I was just going to break at one moment, because I kind of hadn't had that time where I'd sort of had a big breakdown or got kind of all emotional about it. Because I think in the early stages of rehab, whenever anyone that's had probably a significant injury knows that there's such a focus and there's such, an immediate thing to kind of put your mind to. And for me, that was getting surgery. And so I almost found those first few months, while they were probably the hardest in terms of physically and everything like that, mentally, I almost found them the easiest, because I had such a goal and I was finding, I was getting such little wins along the way that happened quite quickly, like, little things like getting off crutches and then being able to walk again. And then you sort of hit the 3-month mark where you can start running. And I was in, really good spirits, because I sort of felt like, I'm killing rehab. I'm getting everything right. I'm, finding like I'm, ticking through the steps pretty quickly and, with relative ease. But then I think maybe once that initial, I don't know if it was kind of like that honeymoon phase as well, where, you get a lot of attention because, the injury happened on TV, and you have people message you that, you wouldn't normally think of. I had, the coach of the English national team and Liz Ellis and people like that kind of reaching out, and you sort of feel like you're in this bit of a bubble. So I think I probably got a bit of a false sense of security almost in those first few months after my injury. Also, obviously, still being involved with the team, that was something that really helped me. I was fortunate enough that because I was captain, they still let me travel with the team and kind of be involved as much as I could, as we spoke about, sort of as a coach, which again, people thought might be really hard. But early on, again, it was kind of this new experience that I was kind of getting to sit up with the coaches on the bench, and it kind of was this almost exciting thing. And then it probably wasn't until after those few months that I started to really miss playing netball, and I started to maybe hit that point in your rehab where it gets quite boring and mundane, and you kind of hit a bit of a standstill where you're kind of not getting as many gains, and you're probably not seeing as big a results as you were at the start. So that's when I probably had to do the most work for me. That was, with our sports psych, it was just around, setting those goals and having kind of realistic expectations of things that, I could achieve through that time. I tried to put a lot of effort in those early months as well into other parts of my life. I sort of, sat down with a few people and said that, when else am I going to get kind of essentially 12 months to work on myself, which is actually funny because it's sort of similar to what's happening now with coronavirus, is that people are now having time to focus on themselves, which, I kind of likened to what happened when I did have my injury. And so, things like with my book, I set up a website that I could sell the book through. I had a blog on my website. I was still studying at uni, so I had a lot of extra time to put into that. But then on the flip side, rehab is a full-time job, and I was still actually probably training more than I was before the injury in terms of, making sure you do things every day. But I found that having kind of those sorts of distractions, which I think happened, helpful, at every level, whether you're injured or not, that's definitely what helped me get through that. I also lived with 3 of my teammates, which again could be hard, but also for me was probably the best thing because it meant that, they were my friends as well, and they kept me kind of positive and upbeat, and I still felt like I was kind of as part of the team as I was when I was playing. I sort of just told myself that I was, not performing, and so I was sitting on the bench instead of actually being on the court, and that kind of was my way of tricking myself into, I guess, thinking that, I was still as involved as those girls that were sitting on the bench and weren't actually on the court were. So, that's probably what happened at that middle stage. And then, obviously redoing the meniscus, that was probably the hardest point that I've had to date, because I think, I was getting back to pretty much doing everything. I was back on court with the team, just not doing, fully competitive things. And that was an interesting time as well, because I think anyone that's sort of done an ACL, you think that the biggest fear is going to be, redoing it, which is what I kind of always had in my mind around, all right, I've just got to get past the idea of kind of redoing my knee. And I was actually surprised by how much I didn't think about that once I was back, kind of training, because you do so much work and you do so much strength and conditioning, and they kind of hold you back for so long that you're almost chomping at the bit to get on the court, that once I was there, I didn't really think about redoing it. But then there was the other part, which was getting back to form, which I kind of hadn't thought about. And I think I just sort of naively assumed as soon as my knee's fine, the rest of me will be fine. And that's where I kind of had to be like, okay, you've got to remember you haven't actually touched, a netball in a competitive environment for, close to, it was 9 months at the time. So it was actually wrapping my head around the fact that I had a lot of work to do, not just in terms of the knee itself, but everything else that went into the game. And then obviously once I'd kind of started to get over that was when I redid my meniscus, and that was probably the most devastating part, because you'd felt like you'd spent so long rehabbing, and then the thought of having to go back to being on crutches and doing all of that was pretty hard to wrap my head around in the early stages. But again, I was lucky, I think, that everything happened so quickly. I sort of retore it on a Monday, and I was in surgery the following Monday, and I kind of went back to that sort of mindset that I was in when I first did my ACL, and that, okay, baby steps into literally baby steps, learning to walk, getting back into running. And then all of this happened with the coronavirus, which for me, like I said, has kind of ended up being a bit of a blessing in disguise. So I guess now everyone's mindset is probably in a similar way, in that it's, trying to keep yourself motivated and keep, have enough to do to make sure that you stay motivated and stay focused and disciplined, and essentially get yourself, keep yourself in as good a form as you can to hopefully be able to play again soon.
Yeah, awesome. What a journey. But I guess, I'd like to try and take you back a little bit, because I think it'd be a really interesting chat for the girls. Is as a 16-year-old, again, you obviously were doing really well at junior netball, and then getting asked to join, the professional rank of the Thunderbirds, and what, looking back at that, I know we've spoken about it from a prioritization and things of training as a junior athlete, all of a sudden you're training as a senior athlete and thrown in with at that sort of level. Do you remember that time and those changes you had to make moving into that sort of that elite level?
Yeah, for sure. So I was doing year 12 at the time. So my first year of playing professionally was also while doing year 12. So it was, a big year in so many ways, obviously academically and if in netball. So, I mean, the main thing that I was kind of lucky with at that time was when I first started playing professionally, netball was still sort of only semi-professional. So it meant that in terms of things like going to school, I could still do that because we trained, early in the morning and then in the afternoon. So, in terms of disruption to my studies and things like that, it wasn't huge in terms of actually, missing it in terms of physically. But it was, I guess, all the added pressure and the added, every other little thing that goes to playing professionally that isn't just being on the court. So, I'm looking at your pie chart that you've got here at the moment as well, and things like, sleep and self-care. That was huge because, we were training at 6 a.m. in the morning till, 7:30, 8 o'clock. I then had to go to school and then, go to school for that big part of the day doing year 12, which was, pretty taxing, and then having to go to training again in the afternoon. And then you'd get home from training and all you want to do is go to bed, but you've got to try and get your homework in, but then you've also got to try and get enough sleep because you're going to be up at 5:30 in the morning. So for
Yeah.
me, things like organisation and time management became huge. I was quite lucky that I'd sort of prepared in a way, not that I ever expected to be playing professionally at that age, but I always knew that I'd be playing some form of netball while doing year 12. So I'd done an extra subject the year before, which meant, I had a few free lessons. So, some days that meant that if I was, really struggling in terms of tiredness, if I had a free lesson in the morning after training, I'd come home and have a nap. But then I had to make sure that, I still had enough time to kind of get my schoolwork done. So I think it actually taught me to be more efficient with my time. Even now, like I find when I'm studying at uni and don't kind of have, as much going on, I'm much less effective with what I do when I have lots of time to do it. Whereas, if I knew that I only had exactly 1 hour to finish a maths assignment, I would most of the time finish it. So I think that was really key for me, was just making sure that whenever I did, set something for a certain amount of time, I kind of got it done. But then obviously, there were the things that you had to sacrifice. In year 12 is when you start, your friends start going out, you start going to parties, you start kind of doing all of those sorts of things. And I guess I had to, sacrifice that. If we had a game on a Sunday, I'd sometimes be the only member of my family at home on a Saturday night. And, it could be pretty lonely at times because you've got to make sure you're doing the right thing leading into a game. So all those sort of little things that I guess you probably don't think about when you're not in that environment, they were pretty big. And all the psych and the nutrition and everything like that were things that I probably, even early on when I was actually playing professionally, I probably took for granted. I think I sort of thought, why do I need to do work on, my mindset and my psych? I've always just rocked up to a game and played. But then, all of a sudden you're playing in front of a packed stadium and there's a lot more on the line. You're on TV and you're doing things like that. So I had to work a lot on, managing nerves and, everything else that probably goes with that. So those sorts of things became a bigger focus for me. Nutrition, you kind of, again, probably couldn't have a massive curry just before you were about to go and train. You had to be a lot more careful about what you did and had to work a lot closer with those sorts of people. We were lucky that we had a nutritionist and things like that. So I think that was probably the biggest learning that I had from that first year, was just how much, there is to do to make sure that you are, I guess, a well-rounded athlete. And I think I learned a lot of that from my teammates. I had good people around me that kind of helped me along the way. But even now, probably looking back, I still didn't do a lot of those little things well enough. And I think that's, something that is hard to know and to probably make yourself do when you're younger, because, when you do have that bit of extra time, instead of maybe doing some stretching that could help prevent an injury that you might have, you might want to go and hang out with your friends or go to that one party that you can actually go to because you don't have a game that weekend. So I think for me, it was still a lot of a balancing act, and something that I still think to this day, and I talked about when I did my knee, was I think you've got to have a well-rounded life as well. And I kind of learnt pretty early on that I couldn't just focus on netball, but then I couldn't just focus on school. I sort of had to have something in between and still be able to spend time with my friends and, do fun things with my family and all of that. And I think that's in a way why netballers have always been quite lucky, because we've never sort of been fully professional. We've always had to have either, some uni or, a job or something like that, which has always helped us. And I think even, when you do get to that professional level and you are maybe earning enough money to not have to do those things, I still think that they play a huge role in making you probably a better player, because it gives you a bit more perspective, and you do learn to, know what you do enjoy doing, and what is going to, I guess, help you be a better player is probably having, a better life outside of your sport as well.
Yeah, great. Awesome messages there. I think I might, yeah, that's all right. I might just open it up a little bit and get a few of the girls to ask a few questions, or there are a few coaches on as well that might be interested. Our sports psych Emma's on tonight, so she might be interested to hear, and or S&C as well. So I'll open it up for a few questions there. You can either ask or type them, and I can ask Maddy, either or. Emma.
Well, Sandon knows me a little now because I'm going to ask a question. So, Maddy, I'm Emma. I'm the sports psych. I had a couple of questions, but I'll just stick with one at a time. My first question is, what do you know now that you wish you'd known when you...
Oh, God, that's a very good question. God, I think a lot of them are probably those little things again. I think even for me at the moment, like one probably thing that I can talk about is my body, like injuries and things like that. I probably didn't take enough care of it. I think when you're young and you're, just so excited to be there, you kind of just want to play and that's all you want to do. And so I probably, maybe swept a few things under the rug and played on when I, had things that I probably shouldn't have been doing. So I think I've just probably learnt to listen to my body a lot more in old age, is what I'll call it. So that was really my biggest thing, and around like just actually listen to your physios, doing your rehab programs, and all of that side of things. But then I think probably even bigger than that was probably those things I touched on earlier around knowing that once you get to the professional level, being the best player or the strongest or the fastest isn't going to cut it, because everyone's just as strong and everyone's just as fast and everyone has played netball for probably longer than you have. So it was being able to find an edge in terms of things like, psych, and being able to, manage pressure and be able to handle nerves and, that preparation, things like visualization, all those things that you kind of go through with probably yourself. Other things that I didn't, I used to kind of not laugh about, but I wouldn't kind of take seriously when we had a psych session when I was younger, because I thought, I'm just going to go out there and play netball, and if I'm good, I'm good. If I'm not, I'm not. But now I've realised that, yeah, that's definitely not the case, and that's probably the reason why, I had a few years where I probably did plateau when other players, started to really hit their straps. And I think for me, it was that, yeah, I didn't probably focus enough on those other little things that weren't just the actual playing side of it.
Oh, great answer. Thank you. And my other question was, obviously you are from Adelaide and you had to move to Sydney with the opportunity to play for the SWIFTS. That would have been, you sound like somebody who's very connected to your family. Like I feel like you're somebody who really gets that love and connection from your family. So how was it having to move into state and to then make that adjustment of being a little bit more self-reliant and having to learn all those other skills that go along with moving away?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I still remember the day that I had to make the decision to move, and I felt sick about it for days on end. And there was obviously the loyalty of wanting to stay with the Thunderbirds, a team that had given me an opportunity from when I was 16, and I obviously wanted to kind of I felt like I sort of owed it to them to stay around. But when I talked about sort of plateauing, I felt like I needed a change, and that's, I guess, where the decision to move to Sydney came, in terms of wanting to step outside of my comfort zone and kind of push myself, which I didn't think I was probably doing as much when I was in Adelaide, because things were a little too comfortable. And I guess in terms of, the living situation as well, I was very lucky that I was living at home, and even now, you go back into old habits. Mum and dad still cook and clean and do all that sort of stuff for you. So yeah, it was tough, but it also for me was fun. Like I think I was 22 when I made the move, so I was kind of at that age where it was still so exciting to be cooking and cleaning for myself because it was my own house and my own area, and I lived with teammates that were also from Adelaide that I'd known from when I was a junior. So when I say that I moved into state, I always say that I think I kind of cheated because I automatically had 12 best friends that become your teammates, and I also was living with two girls that I previously did know. So fortunately, I didn't struggle too much with that transition. And I'd also had a year of living at the AIS in Canberra when I was 19, leading into some Australian 21s teams. And I think the good thing about, these days, even we all know now, like technology is amazing. I still would talk to my family all the time. I'd kind of get back, every now and then for Christmas, and we'd have, our off season. I'd come home for, a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months at a time. So yeah, I luckily didn't sort of struggle too much with that in the end.
Thanks for sharing, Maddy.
Thank you. Good questions.
Girls, any questions from you girls at all for Maddy? Talk. That's one thing we've been trying to encourage, man. A few more questions. Girls are almost scared.
I think the Estuary has written a question there in the chat, Zandon.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Yeah, how did you manage the pressure from friends, peers to participate in regular teenage social activities?
Well,
good question.
Very good question. I think to some degree, sometimes I didn't cope in that I sometimes gave in, but I think I was also very lucky that I had very supportive and understanding friends. And I think the fact was that it was kind of exciting for them in a way that I was also playing professionally because, they would come to the games and, teachers would stop me in the hallway and want to have a chat. And it was kind of this, a bit of a novelty in those early days. So they were really understanding and kind of knew that, I had something else to do. I also think it's, I don't know about you guys, but having sport also provides a very good excuse. I think sometimes if you don't want to go out and things like that, you can just say, I've got netball or I've got tennis the next day, whereas, your everyday teenager might not be able to have that. And that's where I think some people can get a bit lost and, give in a lot easier to that peer pressure because they kind of don't have something else outside of that. So, as soon as I'd say, oh no, I've got training in the morning, they were fairly understanding. But in saying that, I still love to have a good time. I still love to be able to go out with my friends. And I was quite lucky that our season finished quite early the year that I played. And I was still able to go to formal and was still able to go to schoolies and all that. So I think for me, knowing that I had that stuff to look forward to helped me. It meant that, those couple of months of sacrificing going out or sacrificing going to parties, I was like, if I can get through to July or August, that's when, I can still do all these fun things. I also was lucky that the year that I debuted, I also had a friend in the team that was a similar age, and so she was going through very similar things, and so we'd be able to chat to each other and kind of bounce off each other. But yeah, in saying that, I probably still made mistakes where I probably, went out for longer on a night that I shouldn't have, and like every teenager probably got caught up in, having, not enough sleep the night before or things like that. But I kind of learned as I went along that I just had to stay strong, and I knew that, this opportunity to play at the level I was playing at wouldn't last forever and didn't come along to everyone. So yeah, just tried to make the most of that.
Yeah, great question. Another good one. When you first started out in the professional league, did your teammates accept you, or were they a bit jealous?
No, I was very lucky. I think the time that I came into the team, it was an interesting one because the Thunderbirds had been really successful for a few years, and they had, a bit of a turnover in players. They lost a few to, interstate and things like that. And so when I came in, it was kind of this bit of a revamped team. We even, became pink when they used to be teal. And as I said, I had those kind of couple of girls in the team that were also young, so we sort of were able to come in at the same time. But I was super lucky that the girls were all so accepting. They were all, lovely. They're, still probably some of my best friends to this day, even though I didn't even realize at the time they were, nearly 10 years older than me. But because we were in that similar environment, it felt like they almost my friends at school. I was also lucky that they kind of helped me out with things like my schoolwork. I'd be, going to New Zealand one weekend, and Erin Bell, who was an exercise physiologist, would help me with my PE homework, and then Renee Hallinan, who'd done a, business degree, was helping me with my other homework. And I think they kind of liked having someone young around as well. I think they'd probably been in a team where it was, with older girls for a little while, so it was sort of refreshing for them. But yeah, we never had any issues with that. I guess with netball as well, there's only 12 in a team at the time, so you kind of all are forced to kind of work together because it doesn't work without, any of you. So yeah, I think very lucky that netball is a very kind of accepting sport in that sense.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's something that, we talk to the girls a lot about. Tennis obviously isn't a team sport, very individualized, but with the environments, we talk about our environments and training and squads, and really try and create that environment in our squads when the girls do get together, because as you would know, everyone's putting in, everyone's going to get better. If you've got a couple that are really distracting and not really committing to the level of intent that you want to train, it makes it really difficult. And so you're almost pushing. Yes, you're pushing yourself because you want to get better, but you're also trying to push your teammates because you know that that's going to make the environment better, and as a team, you're going to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always say that. I think that's kind of what helped us this year at the SWIFTS as well, is that a lot of the girls often referred to the fact that training was harder than a game. And we'd try and make, when we were training against each other in a match-like simulation, and I guess that's the same for, you girls, where you're playing against each other at training. If it's so hard at training, you then come to a match and you're like, this is easy. I've done it harder during the week when I've had to train against, so-and-so, or I've had to play against her. So, yeah, we really found that we got the most out of each other when we did push each other a lot harder than, maybe other teams were at the time.
Yeah. One more. What other sports did you play when you were younger, and then when did you decide that you wanted to be a netball player?
Good question. Yeah, I was a huge tomboy growing up, so I played literally every sport I could. I was like the only girl in the Year 5 cricket team. I played footy, I played touch football, did all the, any carnival I could do to get me out of a day of sport. A day of school. But probably my most serious sports growing up I actually played a lot of tennis. I used to, think that I played, I think, Div 1 tennis when I was quite young, and we have a tennis court out the back here at home, and my parents grew up playing tennis, so it was sort of tennis in the summer, netball in the winter, but I always knew I was never going to make it in tennis, so that was a pretty easy decision to make, to move on to netball. But yeah, I think it was probably once I started making a few state teams, and then I got put in the SASI program, which is like the South Australian Sports Institute, which you guys would know about. That's where we had to kind of start having this daily training environment. So I sort of didn't have the choice, I guess, to be able to play other sports, which I didn't really enjoy at the start because I'd loved playing everything else. I'd done, basketball, did a lot of surf life saving, would play touch football when I wasn't kind of playing netball. So I actually found it quite difficult when we got told that, you've got to focus on netball. But yeah, for me, it was probably an easy decision in a way because it was probably the sport out of all the sports I played that I was the best at. So, and it was also the sport I loved the most. So, yeah, there was just something about netball that I really loved, and other sports probably didn't do it for me as much as they did. So yeah, in my early years though, when we were still only on 8-month contracts, I'd still try and play touch football in the off season when we weren't in contract, or play tennis on the weekends. I played seniors with my auntie and cousin for a while in our off season when I was playing for the Thunderbirds. So yeah, I kind of still tried to keep that balance, but yeah, it was fairly young when I had to kind of make the decision to stick with netball, I guess.
Yeah, great. I've got one for you. You did talk about your mates and that, but what was it like? And we all go through it when you had to compete against your mates. How was that? Whether you might have played mates on a different team, but I know a few of the girls are mates, and they got to go out and play one another. What was that like for you?
Yeah, well, I guess like in a like my first game, I remember for the Swifts when we've had to play the Thunderbirds, like I felt sick. That was the most nervous I've ever been for a game, even though I think Swifts, Thunderbirds hadn't won a game. It wasn't so much about winning or losing against them. It was that, oh my God, I've spent half my life playing with some of these girls, and now I'm having to play against them, and I've decided to leave them and all of that, but. I think there's just something about sport that as soon as you step onto either, we talk about the white line, you step over the white line and you get white line fever and it kind of all goes out the window. And it's always the thing that I found the funniest about netball was that the girls that were the meanest and the ones that I hated the most to play against always ended up being the nicest and the ones that ended up being my friends. I'd sort of grown up in the under 21s Australian teams. And so, by the time that I started playing, pretty much everyone I played was someone I either knew or had crossed paths with. And for me, it was just, staying really focused and just being really process driven and just thinking about, at the end of the day, they're not going to take a backward step, so I'm not going to. And just knowing that you've kind of got to take it for them shot by shot, but for us kind of pass by pass. So, we kind of called it about, a faceless opposition in that, before the game, you're not friends, but then after the game, you can be. And I think that's the good thing about sport is that no matter what happens when you're on the court, you still seem to be able to be friends afterwards.
Yeah, great. Well, Maddy, really appreciate you being on tonight. We've sort of come to a bit of an end there with everyone, and but thanks again for your time tonight, just to talk about your journey. Well done to the girls. I thought there was some really good questions tonight from a few of our girls for you. So,
absolutely. No, thank you for having me. Good luck, girls, with your future tennis careers. I'm sure I'll be able to say that, I was in a chat with them one day and now they're out on the circuit and playing at the Australian Open and all that. So I'll be watching keenly.
Yeah, and for the girls too, don't be afraid to get Maddy's book. It's a good Race on the Court. It's a good little story. So if you get an opportunity over this time, read a book. It's not a bad thing. But again, Maddy, thanks again. Awesome to have you tonight, and good luck with all the rehab.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll stay in touch.
Appreciate it. Thank you. See you later.
Thanks. Good job, guys. We'll see you next Tuesday, everyone. But thanks for being on tonight. Good questions, and look forward to seeing you guys through the week and next Tuesday.
Thanks.
Good job. See you.
Thanks, Anders. See you next week.